Hello and welcome back to the Lakeshore Video Podcast. I'm your host, George Niksch, and with me today is John Mick of Swamp Sound Studios.
Yes,
Welcome.
sir. Well, thanks, George. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So, John, for the people who don't know, who are you? What do you do?
Well, I'm going down the rabbit hole already on that one. I would say the best thing to say is I'm an all-in style producer.
Okay.
I have my own home studio in my basement. It's private home based. But I do everything from putting the mics up to getting the sounds to tracking, mixing, all the way to the mastering process.
Nice.
So I kind of have my hands in every bit of the process as a audio guy.
That's awesome. So, Swamp Sound Studios, where did you come up with that name?
Yeah, the first name I came up with, it was probably about 2011, and it kind of came from, being here in the Midwest, it gets like super swampy
Uh
and
huh.
muggy in the summers, and I've always recorded in basements, even still.
Yeah.
My studio's in my basement.
Yeah. I've been to the studio. It's awesome. You guys got to come record there and hire me for the video. It's really cool space. And he's got like this amazing console. It's like enormous. So and honestly, John's one of the best mixers I know. So he really puts his heart and soul into it, and you can hear it in the actual edit. So in the actual final mix. So yeah,
Thank you, George. Yeah, a lot to dive into, literally into the swamp, right? I always joke about deep dives into the swamp, but
yeah,
that's kind of where the name came from. I've always been in like muggy,
hmm,
basements. It's always been kind of swampy, like
yeah,
when you get like multiple dudes in a room, tracking drums and bass, things live,
hmm,
it gets a little sweaty.
yeah, yeah. Oh, we should also mention you're in Valparaiso. That's where you're based.
Yes, sir. Just
Cool.
north of the university.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So very
Oh,
close to third.
and I used to live right next to John, like 2 blocks away. We didn't even know.
Walking
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah, we didn't even know until, like, the last 6 months that I lived there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I wanna know, like, take me back, like, where did you get into audio? What's, like, your first memories of, like of not only, like, just listening to we can go all the way back to
Oh, yeah.
listening, but I wanna know when you got into the recording side too. So, like, take me all the way back. Where
Sure. I started really, really young for me because my dad was a musician and he was just always playing, mandolin and the violin, piano, guitar, bass, drums in the house, growing up. So it always kind of was around,
Mhm.
music. And he had really good taste in me. He does. He's got really good taste in music. So I was hearing stuff like Grand Funk Railroad and Frank Zappa and, like, Captain Beefheart and stuff when I was, like, a little kid in the
Nice.
car,
Yeah, yeah.
like, I kinda when you're a little kid, you don't get it. You're just kinda like, "What is this weird," you know? And you get older, and I'm like, "I get it.
Yeah.
I get it." So it kinda started really young. I was interested in music, like, "Ooh, this is different. What is this?" But my first real recollections of, encountering recording, on a personal level was my dad again. He was recording, his own personal projects with a band in Dyer, Indiana, and I remember being, like, a 5 or 6 and just kinda being like, "Well, this sounds like a professional recording. They're doing this in a
Mhm.
basement,"
Yeah.
and it sounded like everything else on the radio to me, as
That
a little kid.
that's actually really cool because, like, back then, I mean, you're, like, same age as me, or I just turned 36.
Yeah, yeah, I'm, like, a
So
year behind you.
yeah, so, like,
I'll be
back then,
36 soon,
a
so
lot of people didn't have their own home recording studios back
no.
then, so it's, like, way different now, but what was that like just having that? Did you just take it for granted, or was it something you knew it was, like, something special, or
No, I always really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool because my dad had, like, a little TIAC Porta Studio. You'd just cut 4 channels to a little cassette, like, all in one unit.
Oh, nice.
That was always around, and I remember, like, he had kind of like a pseudo setup for a while, and I was always interested in that, like,
Mhm.
kind of seeing how that worked and plugging things in, but, I think I kinda almost branched out on my own with, like, watching what my dad was doing, and for whatever reason, when I was 7, 8, I wanted a dictaphone.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
little, you talk into a
Right.
little mini cassette, and I had just probably started playing drums right around then, 7, 8, 9
Oh,
years
wow.
old. Well, probably 7 or 8 years old, and, would put, like, the dictaphone in different places in the room to try to make the drums sound like, good on this
Oh,
whole
nice.
one mic, not really even, like, knowing it would be the catalyst for, like, what I'd be doing,
Yeah, yeah,
in my
that's wild.
adulthood, but, it's just I started experimenting real young, not
Did
really
how'd
thinking
you
about it.
how'd you learn drums?
My dad again, I remember real young, man, him just, like, taking my hands and, "This is how you do an 8
Oh, really?
groove."
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
like,
Nice.
forcing your hands to play the beat.
Yeah.
That actually helped.
Nice, nice, that's cool.
So
That's I know your dad is, really into I just met his dad yesterday, and, he makes, products and stuff too, like picks and things like that, so that's really neat too. It's, like, cool to see where you got it all from. How did your dad get into it?
He's always been an industrial dude, and I think, like I don't wanna give away the secrets, but, I think the light bulb kinda went off like, "Ooh, there's some unique materials here that I have
Mhm.
access to." And that's kinda where it started, where it was, trying to take a traditional whatever it is, guitar pick,
Yeah.
and doing something unconventional with it, with maybe a different material or something like that,
Yeah.
That's kinda how it started.
Do you, kinda bring that I'm kinda trying to bring this into your music because I would say your music is a little bit unconventional. It's
Mhm.
like it's a little different from, like, anything I've ever heard. Like, the
That
what I just listened to oh, wait, that's not till later, but, you guys will listen to it later, but we recorded it beforehand. I didn't wanna give away that secret, but, but yeah,
Stagecraft.
yeah, yeah. It's like a really, really cool sound, so it's like, I can see, like, just that out of the box thinking probably, comes from your dad a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, because it's like, even when I take a step back from my own music, it's like, how do you put it into a box or a genre and put a little bow on it? Because it, like, there's dance elements, there's techno elements, you hear, like, the hip hop elements, there's, like, the Zappa influence, all
Yeah.
these it just it's just so much crammed in there, but
Seems like you got a lot of funk in there,
oh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Where'd that come from? What was your, like, main funk influences?
I remember my mom listening to, like, quote unquote, I hate calling it disco, but, like, that
Oh, yeah, yeah.
disco
Mhm,
back in, like, when I was a little kid, we
mhm,
would go places. I remember, I think she had, like, a compilation CD that had, like, Ohio Players and,
mhm,
like,
mhm.
kinda like roller disco stuff, and that kinda caught my attention, and, as I aged, I realized a lot of my influences were influenced by funk. Well, I know a lot of the funk bands.
Mhm,
I mentioned Ohio Players, but, like, just to mention a few as I got older, I got into bands like Slave, or like Midnight Star,
mm,
stuff like that that's kinda a little bit more underground, like, weird
mhm, mhm.
funk, and that would be an influence on me too. It's unconventional funk,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. The way you mixed it, it's like it's funk meets party, and I mean, funk is already party, but it's like meets kind of like that, uh what's that talk box thing you're using?
Yeah, I mean, it's
That
talk
that's
box.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of from, who used to use that all the time?
Zapp and
Zap
Roger.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, big influence,
yeah,
huge influence.
yeah, that's cool.
You hear it all over all the old funk tracks, man, the talk box thing, and
Mhm.
once I had figured that out, thanks to my wife, she bought me one.
Oh, really cool.
Oh, yeah, early on, I was like, "Oh, there it is,"
Yeah,
plugging a synth into it,
yeah.
and it's
When
robot vocal.
when did you first start getting into, like, recording, like, professionally?
Well, it was a long journey. I think it, kinda started with, the dictaphone thing, moving
Mhm,
things around, like, kinda not even knowing that. I mean, that's what the pros do. If you're recording drums with room mics, they kinda move them around and try to find the best spot in the room where
mhm,
the drums sound like a drum kit, right? Like you're standing in front of it kinda.
mhm,
Excuse me. Um, I had graduated onto that 4-track TAC that I mentioned and just kinda stole some of my dad's, like, old Shure microphones,
oh, nice.
like 70s,
Mhm.
pre, like, 57s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, like, I think they were, like, Unidyne, so they had, like, a little quarter-inch plug,
Mhm,
and started playing around with that and figuring out, like, well, how do I get, like, a cohesive drum sound with just a few microphones? I was probably 9 or 10 and started playing around
wow,
with that
nice.
machine.
That's yeah, that's young. I mean, it's so weird because for me like I just showed you, I do play guitar, and I don't tell many
He's a
people.
ripper, man.
Yeah.
Sleeper
But
over here.
I didn't even get into, like, music at all, like, playing it until 6th grade, because that's when I started playing trumpet in the band, and then I started playing guitar. I got my first guitar in, like, 7th grade, but I didn't really learn it until, like, high school when I started taking lessons, or maybe, yeah, 8th grade, high school, somewhere around there, I started taking lessons, and, it's like I feel like whenever I talk to musicians like you or any of the other musicians on my podcast, they're all like, "Oh, yeah, I started when I was, like, 4 years old playing the whatever instrument," and I'm like, "Yeah, I kinda started late."
I mean, I had memories of being 3 or 4, and, like, my dad had this one drum kit, I still remember it was a purple Tama, and I just kinda remember, like, not knowing what you're doing and just kinda like how kids do and hitting stuff.
Mhm,
As you get older, you kinda start to figure and then going back to that moment of just, like, making he was, like, forcing me to make the beat,
mhm.
it's like the light bulb goes off, and, yeah, I mean, it was probably because that was about that same point, right? That transition between elementary school into middle school where they start, they take you out into the hall. I think you should play trumpet.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember this very distinctly. They took me out there. I knew I wanted to play drums, dude.
Oh,
I was already playing. And I
mhm,
remember they
yeah.
took me into the hall. Oh, you want to play drums, huh? Well, here, try the trumpet. Oh, these three guys looked at. I think you should play. You should play the trumpet. I said, no, I want to play the drums. And
Yeah,
they're like, okay. I'll play the
nice.
drums.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. I was at Pierce Middle School, and I, uh I tried to play the saxophone and the clarinet. I could not figure out how to make a reed make
No,
sounds. And then
couldn't either.
they're like, "Here, try the trumpet." And I played like a high C, and the person who handed me the trumpet was like, "I can't even hit that note." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." They're like, "You should play trumpet."
Right,
So
I
yes.
feel like
I
that
was like,
only
"Okay."
trumpets, like,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that was, like, the most expensive instrument,
Oh, yeah,
I
man.
don't
I don't know. I feel like
maybe
the tuba is probably pretty expensive. There's so much brass, but
but unfortunately, there are 1 or 2 of those at best that they
yeah.
could or
Yeah,
like, "Oh, we should
true.
cram a million trumpet."
Yeah, that's true. There was a lot of trumpet. That's where I met James Guetta was playing trumpet.
Oh, no way,
But I
cool
think
cat.
I
I
want
like that guy.
I wanna say James started on a saxophone,
He
actually.
looks like a sax player,
I
doesn't he?
I
He
think
looks like he should
I think I remember him playing
you know?
sax in middle school, and then he switched to trumpet in high school or something. I can't remember.
Ah, I'm gonna have to call him up for
'Cause
some sessions. "Who used to play?"
'Cause I was, like, 1st chair, all through middle school, and I never practiced. And then in high school, the principal's son got 1st chair because
Well,
he's
of
the
course,
principal's son.
of course.
I mean, he was good, but, I mean, I was no slouch, but I don't know, I was kind of I would act out a little bit in class, and so
Oh, yeah, yeah,
they
I
put
was
me in
I was
higher
the clown.
chairs.
Yep, I was the clown,
Yeah.
the hierarchy of the
Yeah.
concert
So
band.
so they put you on drums when you told them this.
Yeah, I wasn't I
Yeah.
put my foot down, I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, no," I said, "My
Which
grandma was a
which,
drummer, dad was a
did you
drummer."
play all the drums? I know they have, like, the timpani, they have
Yeah,
different.
and that was what was fun was, you got to kinda just gravitate around to whatever percussion instrument you liked, and
Did you do the xylophone thing or
that was my favorite.
whatever that was called?
By
Yep,
far my favorite,
right.
like, if I could afford to buy one, I would have a full-size marimba in my house. I don't know how I'd cram the thing in there,
Yeah.
but I would have one if I could
Yeah,
afford one. Like,
yeah.
that's man, 'cause, shout out to Bill Romer. Shout out Bill Romer. He taught me everything I know about playing drums
Right.
and why I play drums the way I do and how I'm able to get you mentioned my drum sound. I mean, it goes back to how you hit the drums.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in all seriousness, tuning and how you smack them.
Mhm.
Bill taught me. And I
Nice.
just have memories of him,
He's a local legend, you told me?
local legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He taught at Grimmer Middle School,
Oh, cool.
percussion. I never had the opportunity to take private lessons from him, but he just taught me so much because he saw the interest. I
Mhm.
would come in there sometimes like, "Hey, Mr. Romer, how do you play this song?" And he would show me. I mean, by ear. He'd sit there and he'd like Baby Elephant March. He'd sit there and he'd figure it out by ear.
Nice.
I'm like, I just remember one time walking in and he was on the vibraphone. He didn't think anybody was watching him and just watching him play like jazz, the smoothest with 4 mallets, just doing the smoothest jazz I've ever seen in my entire life.
Nice.
And that really sparked me where I was like, I love xylophone, marimba. glockenspiel. I did
The
marching
glockenspiel.
Yeah, I did the
Nice.
marching glockenspiel heavy.
Yeah.
It's I think the second heaviest instrument in the
Is
next
that
to
like a s
like a
so
bell kit,
okay.
like the metal bell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it cuts through everything.
Nice.
That was
Did you do,
favorite.
in high school, did you do the what were they at, like, 4 drums?
I
What do
coulda,
they call
yeah.
that?
Well, there's either quads or we
Yeah.
had tenors in high school, so it would've been 5 drums. They had
Yeah,
a
yeah.
whole extra one in the center,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah,
little
no.
volley kinda thing.
Mhm.
I never did marching in high school.
Oh,
I
you
just
didn't do marching?
Yeah, I did it in middle school, but I did, like, symphonic band all throughout high school, and that was fun because
Nice.
I had a really, really great teacher there too by the name of Mr. Harmon, and, he just had this passion
Mhm.
for music. Even if the kids were clowns that didn't care, I mean, he took it serious. I didn't wanna say, like, there were a few clowns, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Dang, that's
he took
lucky,
it
man, that you
serious.
had, like, a good teacher. Cause I mean, our teacher kinda cared at first, like, when I first got into high school, the first year he was alright, second year he started, like, just not caring and just slacking and doing some shady things, and money was going missing and things like this, and so, that's when I kinda, like, I was like, "I'm done with band." So after sophomore year, I quit band, and I kinda wish I had kept going, but it was like I mean, it was super fun. I loved 'cause
I loved
I was in marching band, the regular concert band, jazz band, I was doing it all, and, marching band was my favorite, but, jazz band was pretty fun too, but, yeah,
wasn't good enough to get in jazz band,
I d
you know?
the real reason Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
The
like, when it came to, like, drum set, trap
Oh,
music,
yeah, well, yeah,
well,
that is like
at
a
that time, I just
interesting
wasn't.
Yeah, jazz drums are like their own beast, huh?
Yeah, I was always, growing up more of like a rock hard hitter
Yeah,
kinda,
yeah, yeah.
I just couldn't. I mean, now I feel like I might be able to get away, play some, like, low rent jazz, you know what I mean? But,
Yeah,
like, back then, I just wasn't good at
yeah.
it. But there were players that were just infinitely better than me, and got the lessons and the attention.
So when did you start learning other instruments? Because you play guitar, you play bass, I'm sure you play keyboards or something
Little
too, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not that great at keyboards, I admit. I would say I'm more of like a synth player where you
Okay.
kinda would get away with doing, single notes
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and doing,
Mhm.
oscillation and all kinds of weird
Yeah.
stuff. Um, but I think maybe about 13 or 14, I was kinda interested in bass, and my
Okay.
dad played everything too already, so
Mhm.
he was just like, "Well, let's go." I
Yeah,
remember
so you
sitting in the
you had all the instruments available.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember sitting in the front room one time, and he was just kinda showing me how to, like, just pluck the thing and make notes,
Mhm.
and that was he's like, "Just walk it up and down," and that was kinda where I started. It was one finger, just,
Nice.
and
Do you play bass with a pick or without a pick?
without. Yeah, I
Exclusively?
can't. I can't do it,
Yeah.
no. No, because like, I switch between what you call pizzicato,
Uh-huh.
and I'm very specific about where I place my thumb and fingers
Mhm.
on usually on the pickup and towards the back of the bass.
Mhm.
But I play a lot of slap too, so you can't
Yeah,
have a pick. I have to have.
yeah. I prefer the sound without the pick, but
Me too. Because you kinda have to when you're switching between pizzicato
Mhm.
and you're switching between slap, I mean, you have to have these 3
Yeah,
fingers just free to be able to
yeah.
because slap is just weird,
Mhm.
like, when you I always think it's so weird when you look at people's hands when they're playing slap.
Mhm.
It doesn't really look like you're doing anything.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
A lot of this action.
well, I'm like lot less than that. I'm probably more,
Yeah.
up and down.
Oh, really?
Or like, I guess Flea and Joe Dart play like that. They more hit downward as opposed to
Mhm.
the guys that, downward strum and pluck the string on the way back up, like Victor Wooten or something. I just could never do that. I'm more just like that,
Yeah.
yeah, da, 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 I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
For lack of better words, we're not going to use them, I guess. Da, da, da.
yeah. When when it comes to your studio, what's, like, your favorite stuff to record? Or are you just all over the place?
I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
I admit that, and I think having a home studio, you have that luxury of being able to pick what projects
Mhm.
you want to. It's like a little it's like selfish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think we're blessed around here to have really great musicians and people doing really cool stuff. And it
Yeah.
just catches my attention, man, where I'm like, I want to work on that.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
Um So I don't discriminate, even kinda like in my own musical styles and tastes, like, man, I'll do whatever. If it's good hip hop, I'm
Mhm.
in. If it's good jazz, funk, I did, shout out Gearhart, we did their record
Oh, cool.
recently,
Nice.
start to finish.
How'd that go down?
Oh, man, was it fun. I won't, throw anybody under the bus, but I think I was, like, the 3rd or 4th guy to take a crack at that record.
Oh, really?
Just, life happens.
Yeah.
People have to turn
Don't
down
just
projects and stuff, like, life happens, right?
Mhm.
So I wanna say I was the 3rd or 4th guy, don't quote me on that, to take a crack at the record. We did 3 songs, and I'm not making this up, we did a 17-hour session.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's a long day.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was there, well, for me, it was more like 18 because I was there now with
Yeah,
at least
setting up.
mics.
Wow.
We cranked out 3 songs start to finish in a 17-hour session. I think once they saw, like, my work ethic, my approach too, because I 'cause I'm willing to experiment. I kinda like, they knew what they wanted to do.
Mhm.
So, each project's different, right?
Yeah.
But they knew what they wanted to do. It was almost like the record produced itself. It was
Oh,
like,
cool.
yeah, yeah, it was just kinda like get sounds that they imagine in their head, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's kinda what you do as an engineer. It's like, well, what do you hear in your head? And
Yeah.
try to get that as best as you can. And I think once they saw that I understood their vision, they were like, "Okay, this is the guy. He gets it.
Nice.
He wants, like," he does 70s style recording if we
Yeah.
do it, and that's what we want.
Yeah, did you like, when you record with bands, do you get on any instruments ever just to if it's something they don't have or they don't
Sometimes.
like, if they just need a little bit of sound here, a little bit of, like, extra
It depends, and, like, I think that goes with that being an all-in producer,
Mhm.
right? And being
Yeah.
able to kinda give your client the best of both worlds, right? Where it's like, if you want a guy to literally just record you and make you sound good, you got it, I can do that. If you need help, like, with drums, dude, I'll jump in. And
Mhm.
even if I'm not, like, the guy, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I play it and, maybe it's not the right
You
vibe,
could
like,
find someone else, yeah.
yeah, we got a few people I can call in my back pocket that are just,
Yeah.
"Shout out Steve Geyer! Shout out Joey Largent!" Like, just rippers, dude.
Yeah, and it's like yeah, I feel like that's makes a good studios when you have, like, because some people are like a solo act and they don't have but they want a recording that's got the backing tracks, so it's
Right.
like you gotta find some people, bring them in. I had to do that once for, my senior project in college, so I was actually like an audio major, like recording major,
Yeah.
which I don't record anymore, like audio anymore, but it's just like too complicated. I don't have time. I'm like I just do video now, but I get John to record the audio. But yeah, I my senior project I had to find so I had brought a band down from Northwest Indiana down to Ball State. We recorded them. It was a friend of mine, and the student teacher that day somehow deleted everybody's stuff that whole day, so we had to re-record
Classic.
everything, because he, like I had it right. The first song I copied over onto my hard drive, and then he's like, "No, you're doing it wrong. You gotta do it this way," and he screwed up everybody else who recorded that day. They all had to re-record. It was ridiculous, and so the problem was the band I recorded, the very next day after we recorded, their drummer went into the Navy.
Ah,
So they don't have like,
okay.
he's no longer available to, like, record, and, the other guys were like, "Yeah, we don't really wanna come back down and re-record, like, thanks for the one song, we appreciate it, but we don't even have a drummer, so we're not gonna." So now I'm like, "Shit, who am I gonna record?" So I knew there's this girl that played guitar and sang in, like, my psychology class or something, so I asked her if she wanted to record, but we needed a full band, and I had my old bassist and drummer from my punk band that I was in.
Ah,
I
right.
reached out to them. I was like, "Hey guys, can you learn these songs in like a week?" And they did. And so we ended up recording like 5 or 6 songs and
Dude.
it worked out. So that was kind of my first taste of like, okay, you can bring in other musicians
Oh, yeah.
sometimes to like make this album that like sounds good. Maybe they don't play with them live, but it's like we want a good recording. So yeah, that's why I was kinda, like, asking, like, do you do that kinda stuff? Like,
Oh, yeah,
find
yeah.
people that kinda put it together, stuff like that, like bring in a horn line or something, or
Well, it just depends on the project, right?
yeah,
You know, because like with Gearhart specifically, they knew exactly what they wanted,
yeah,
right? It was almost like just make them sound good, you
mhm,
know?
mm,
And I mean that in like the nicest way, right? It's like
yeah,
just make sure everything's correct, you
yeah,
know? Like other artists, I'm working with another gentleman right now, Shane Lindemann. We just started working on his record and he wants me to play drums. He
oh,
wants that
nice,
creative input. He
nice.
wants me to give him his opinion
He plays
or my opinion, sorry.
he plays with, the Grateful Dead cover band, what is that called?
I believe so, if I'm not
Uh,
mistaken.
I recorded them before. Is it Dead to Rights, or is it there's another one. I can't remember. There sorry, Shade. I recorded them once at the, I can't remember what they're called. Uh,
Yeah, I'll be honest with
at the Valpo Brewfest, I recorded them one year, and that's how I met him. I think he was playing bass or something, or maybe it was guitar.
he's a wicked
Yeah.
guitarist. Yeah, he blew
Well, oh, it must have been guitar then,
he
yeah.
blew the roof off the house, man. Blew
Nice.
me away. I was like, "Whoa, dang,
Yeah.
settle down."
Yeah,
He's really good.
yeah.
And
And so you're jumping on drums with him?
yeah, that's what's cool is like, he knows what he wants, but I feel like just after one session, it's like I'll listen to the song and get a pretty good idea, like, right off the bat, and I'm pretty close. You know, there's that, like, guidance there, and I think we work well too, because it's like I have this philosophy about recording that there's no right or wrong way. There's technique, you know, there's certain principles that you should follow and how you apply those, that's where the art comes in, right? And
Mhm.
that's like my philosophy to a T when it comes to recording. And, you know, the technical sides apart, he's pretty methodical in knowing what he wants out of a drum track. And I'm able to kind of, I think we work well together because I can step back from like my own playing or work, if that makes sense, and just, no, you're sticking with that take.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
did you hear that drum fill? It's like, no, it's what does the client want? What
Yeah.
does the song call for? What does it need?
Mhm.
You know, and I used to be a lot more hesitant to edit, to throw auto tune on stuff, or even just to mess with plugins.
Mhm.
And you know, the older I've gotten, I'm just finding that every technique, everything has its place.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? There's a time and a place for each tool in your back pocket,
Yeah.
you know. But that also goes with being able to take a step back too, right?
Yeah.
Objectivity, I think, is important when you're trying to be, you know, not only just a recording engineer, but a producer.
Yeah.
You do have to be objective,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, definitely. Have you, I wanted to ask you about, like, sort of the progression of, like, when did people start and this might be a little off topic kind of, but
Oh, sure.
when did people start having their own home studios?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
cause like, I remember when I was, like, in college, or even, like, when I was yeah, you know what? I think it was when I was in college. I set up a recording studio at my parents' place, like, over the summer, and I was recording bands, like, in my parents' basement just with, like, those egg carton things, or actually they were candle holders, they were, like, cardboard candle holders from Yankee Candle, but, I covered the walls in that to, like, make it, sound dampened and stuff, and we were recording bands and stuff down there, and I just remember, like, nobody else really had recording studios in their basement at the time, and, uh I only had 1 mic, so I was recording bands with just 1 SM57, and we would do first guitar, then bass, then vocals, then I literally just did drums with 1 overhead
Hey,
mic.
man. I've been to a lot of studios in Chicago that, you
Yeah,
know, granted they'll have one really good mic, but they have one mic
really.
and that's it.
Yeah, when do you think, like, peop was this shift to, like, home studios versus, like, having to go pay, like, for a big studio in Chicago or something?
You know, and that's kind of tough to say because, you know, you have pioneers like Les Paul that had a studio in his home back in the 50s, you know, and you hear all that movie music, the really fast stuff. He was recording it at home,
Mhm,
you know, and it
mhm.
was high fidelity. Well, if you really want to get into that, he was, you know, dumping tapes over and over and over and was, you know, that's why you hear the low fidelity. I mean, the guy was recording in his house.
Yeah.
And even dude from Boston, what's that dude's name? Tom Schultz, is that it? I think somebody will hit in the comments if I got it wrong, but, I mean, even he had a studio in his house, and recorded all the Boston stuff, in his own
Yeah,
studio that he built because he
yeah,
was a electronics wizard.
yeah.
So I feel like
But when did it become accessible for people who weren't rich?
yeah, yeah, I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I feel like, and I could be wrong on this, it really became more accessible in the 80s. You still had to have
Think so?
yeah, you still had to have a decent amount of money to invest,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because to get, like, a small, like, even a TAC console and, an 8-channel or
yeah.
16-channel tape deck, I mean, it would run you a pretty penny.
So you probably did you start your career recording onto like analog?
I would say so,
Yeah,
yeah.
tape
I
and
I
stuff.
definitely started on tape, there wasn't anything digital until I can tell you, I remember my dad got a Sony mini disc machine in maybe about 1998, and that
Oh,
was
okay.
technically digital, but it would still record onto this little, like, floppy looking thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
digital, right?
yeah.
That's my first experience in digital, like 1998.
Okay.
I remember messing
Wow.
around with that machine,
Yeah,
making some drum recordings.
yeah. Maybe that's like sort of the technology shift that I'm looking for was like from tape to digital because I just feel like
Well, I could
it
touch on that.
like a lot of bands just local bands they would I feel like you had to have a studio to go record in back in the day, like, when we were, like, high school age. I just don't remember a lot of bands having their own studio, like, local bands, you
Yeah,
know?
not a lot of people
Yeah.
did.
But nowadays, a lot of bands do record, like, their stuff locally, but there's also just, like, a lot of because you need the space. So a lot of
Yeah.
bands, they don't have the space for it. But I see a lot of basement studios like yours sort of popping up these days, and it's just like, I wonder if that's like new or if it's always kind of been like that.
Um, I can touch on that.
Yeah.
I think, the big shift happened in the early 2000s when Pro Tools came around. Pro
Oh
Tools have
yeah.
been around since the early 90s, and there have been other, digital audio workstations, but it was Pro Tools that really broke onto the scene. Everybody adopted it, and you started seeing a lot of people getting away from large format mixing consoles,
Yeah.
and tape. But there were still a lot of guys still doing it. A lot of my favorite early 2000s records were done either still fully on, a 24 channel, whatever, Studer, whatever, or done hybrid where they would, that's when you kind of started seeing what you call ADAT start to come around as well. It had a short lifespan, but it would be a standalone unit, kind of like a floppy disk almost. And you could record 24 tracks digitally straight to this thing. So there's
Oh,
no tape
cool.
hiss, that kind of things. And
Yeah.
people would just mix back through a console on, from a DAT.
Mhm.
But Pro Tools really changed the game. And it was all proprietary for a while. So it was really only like, top dudes in the recording industry,
Mhm. Mhm.
have Pro Tools rigs and being able to record 16 or more channels. It was expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say 2008. I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
2008 is the magic year,
That's funny because that's the year that I started recording in my home studio.
and there's probably a reason for that because at that
Or
point,
maybe it was 2009.
there were a lot of interface manufacturers, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Right, but the
Yeah.
big thing was Pro Tools was all proprietary.
Yeah.
You wanted to be a pro with Pro Tools, which let's face it, you can use
Yeah.
any DAW, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But if you wanted to be a pro,
Yeah.
you had to buy their interface, their system, have their
Yeah.
cards inserted into your PC or whatever
Yeah.
to be able to run their proprietary
Yep.
system. Only their interfaces would communicate with their
Yeah.
software, So it was like 2008, maybe it was 10, but I wanna say it was 2008. Pro Tools 10 came out. I might be off by a couple
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
When Pro Tools 10 came out, they were like, "Okay, you can use any interface
Oh, that was
Pro
the
Tools."
change. Okay.
And I bought it. I was like, "Okay, here we go, Pro Tools
Yeah.
10." I bought it
Yeah.
and just kinda went down the interface rabbit hole of, like, how do I get a ton of ins and outs to my computer,
Yeah.
you know?
I think it was like 2009. I That's when I got a MacBook Pro when I was in college. It might have been 2010, 2009 or 10. And I remember I couldn't get Pro Tools to work pirated, but
They were on it.
they always they
They
were
were
on
on it.
yeah, they made sure you couldn't get a pirate version working, but I got Logic Pro, and that's
Yeah,
what I used to record in
great
'cause
program.
it was, I had the, just like a pirate version of it, and, I mean, at the time, like, you could kind of pirate any programs, super easily, so, I ended up getting a blue icicle to
Oh, that's a good mic.
to
Yeah.
to well, no, it was the blue icicle interface, like, to so I could plug my
I thought you said
SM57.
like a blue mic.
Yeah, no, no,
The
I had a
very very
SM57, and I got it into the computer with the icicle thing. It was, like, just a little
Oh,
has, like, one
okay.
gain knob on it, and
I got you.
yeah, and that
Yeah.
that I still have it to this day. Sometimes I use it, to record videos on the computer still,
It's a great
but
brand.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
great brand.
But, yeah, I was wondering if it was, like if I kinda came in there at the time when technology was
I think so.
advancing, because I hadn't recorded really anything before that, like, I remember I had this little MP3 player, and it had a little mic on it, and I would just
Ah,
to record, my guitar, I would just, like, hit record on that and set it by the amp, and
yeah.
that was it.
That was like Ian the dictaphone,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I even remember, like, being in middle school and having that dictaphone and recording me and another guy, like, playing guitar and drums together.
Nice.
Sounded awful.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, well, so I'm asking all this because you have, like you're the only person that I've met that still does, like, some of the analog mixing and stuff, and,
Appreciate
like,
that.
you have, like what was that thing you were showing me where you, like, run it through the console with the things and the little spinny tapes and I don't know what you were showing me, but, like, when you master it, you have, like, a process that nobody else does that I know, like
A lot of big boys do it.
yeah, I know,
I
yeah.
mean, I think a lot of my favorite the guys I look up to are
Mhm.
still mastering
Yeah,
in
I just mean, like, the smaller studios that I've seen, like, they don't have these, like, analog devices and stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and I can kinda run into that, the way I set up my workflow is I have an analog console on the
Mhm,
front end. That's kinda like the centerpiece.
mhm,
Every signal passes through my console. I'm running, I think it's a 2003 Soundcraft Ghost 32 channel, and I have another Ghost to the side, a 24 channel.
mhm,
So the way I have my board set up is that all of my microphones pass through the channel strip. There's a point in the channel strip or the circuit where it's sent out to all that gear that you see in the racks. So
mhm.
I can say patch in well, they're all hard patched,
Nice.
but, like, for instance, one channel will have a preamp patched into the channel strip and a compressor patched in, and it just lives on that channel. I
Mhm,
know, okay, channel 3, my Warm Audio Tone Beast and my Warm Audio 1176 are on there, and that's snare top,
mhm.
you know? So the same thing applies when you're mixing, right? So when you're recording, the microphone passes through that chain, you're imparting that analog character into the recording. So what I do that's a little bit different than a lot of guys that I see, even some of the guys fresh out of school with a degree, there's and this is gonna sound bad when you say it, but I mean it in a nice way. It's like there's a lack of commitment
Mm.
on the recording side where it's like, well, I can add it later, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
I can add it in Pro Tools later. Well,
Mhm.
there's a mistake. Well, I'll fix it later. And this is just my opinion, right? Purely opinion, but I just feel like that's just putting a Band-Aid on it, right?
Yeah.
I like to try to get things right from the source,
Mhm,
which
mhm.
is a very old school cutting to tape mentality
Yeah,
because there was no computer.
yeah,
If you were going to edit, you were going to physically cut a tape. That
yeah.
scares the life out of me. I don't want to do that. But my approach is I want the signal passing through the console into the computer to sound as close to a mixed
Mhm.
signal,
Yeah.
a processed signal as it can without being too much, right? Because you can overdo it on things like compression or, EQing.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you do have to, there's a balance,
Yeah.
right? But that's kind of what I do different than
Mhm.
most guys that I see my age or a little younger.
Yeah.
I kinda relate more to dudes in their 50s, 60s
Mhm.
cutting because it literally is like the cutting to tape mentality. Pro Tools,
Yeah,
my tape
that
machine.
that was, like, the first thing I noticed when I came to your studio, like, was that you had, like, rack effects, and nobody uses those anymore, and, like,
Can't beat them, dude.
it
They sound
it
great.
has a quality to it that's, like, a warmth that, like, you don't get out of the digital effects and stuff, like, without running it through, like, the analog. Because like, that's kind of how we did it at Ball State, like, we would run it through the rack effects prior to going into the computer,
Yep.
and I always thought that sounded better than, like, trying to add them later, and when you were doing it, I was like, "Oh, shit." He's, like, one of the only people I've seen, like, nowadays that still does it that way, and, like, I think it's better, like, I think it's got a warmth, just a character to it that you don't get by doing all those digital effects later on.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's just a different cup of tea. And it
Yeah,
goes back to that philosophy of there's no like right or wrong way to do it. It's
mhm,
just what my ears want to hear, I
yeah,
guess, right? Like I like classic records. I like stuff like The Police, and I hear those recordings and they're great recordings, but they're analog.
mm,
You know what I mean? Even the digital remasters and transfers and stuff, it's still the heart of it is an analog recording. And you hear all these younger folks. I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on the younger guys, but it's like, you hear guys talk about, this sound, this older classic sound, but then they're approaching it in a modern way.
mhm,
That kind of like, well, we'll do it afterwards. There is some science to kind of back it up. Ones and zeros just while plugins are getting really good at emulating analog, I will say that there's some plugins that are really, really good
mhm,
at emulating analog. But the fact of the matter is ones and zeros are ones and zeros,
yeah,
versus actually taking a signal and putting it through a hand-wound transformer.
yeah,
They're just different.
yeah.
They're just different.
I I had a teacher put it this way, like, your waveform, you have your, like, your wave going up and down. I'm trying to do this so they can see it. Uh,
I know what you're gonna say. I
so you got your wave on an analog, it's an actual wave, it's a smooth line, but
you
on
feel it.
digital, it's like like
Yeah,
the
you beat
like
me to it.
Tetris blocks, like,
Mhm.
it's squared off, and the weird thing is, this is, like, a really weird caveat, uh I don't know if I'm just crazy or not, but I was working in like office that had a bunch of cubicles,
Yeah.
and when somebody was like talking really loud and it was going over the top of the cubicles, it made it sound digital. It was so weird. And I was like, I
Well,
think these actual physical cubicles, like the sound going into the cubes, like
yeah. Valleys.
squared it off to make it sound. I was like, what the hell? That sounds like a weird digital effect going on to the person's voice. And I swear it was just because there was like actual cubes where it was cubing off the uh
Might have been getting
the
some noise
waveform.
cancellation
I
or
don't know
something.
what it was. It sounded crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they described it that way. Like it's a stair step going up and down
Oh,
on
it is. It
digital
is.
versus analog is actually the wave, which is why like your old vinyls sound better that were as long as they were like recorded. And there's some people argue you can't hear the difference, but I don't know. It sounds warmer to me. There's like a different sound to
Yeah.
an analog
Oh,
recording.
you're definitely right, and you kinda beat me to it. I was like, "Do I go that nerdy? Do I get that deep
Yeah.
into it?" But no, I mean, you have to think about the nature of sample rates. I
Yeah.
mean, there's samples
Yeah.
of the sound, right? So if you're recording 44.1, you're taking 44,000.1 samples per second, right?
Mhm.
Whereas an analog tape, it just is, right?
Yeah.
And that's kinda where you get, correct me if I'm wrong, it might even be the concept of, like, buffering, right? Where,
Mm.
a digital system is picking which sample to play,
Yeah.
right? It might even be doing it, so fast. I mean, it does it so fast and efficiently you can't hear it, but the point is with a digital source, you're only hearing, like, 1 sample per
Mhm.
whatever
Yeah.
the breakdown is per
Yeah.
millionth of a millisecond or
Mhm.
whatever
Yeah.
versus continuously variable. And I think that would be the phrase, right? With
Yeah.
analog, it's continuously variable. It's an actual straight curved line
Yeah.
versus what you're saying, the Tetris, the stair stepping.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You're doing
And
great at it.
some people argue you can't hear the difference, but I swear I've always been able to hear the difference. Like, it sounds smoother on an analog recording that you're also playing back in an analog, like, like I said, a vinyl or something, something that's a physical, even tape was analog.
Well, yeah, yeah, and I was gonna say even tape, like, has certain characteristics, like, certain people like certain formulas because, you get certain, like, for instance, Ampex 456, and I might be wrong about this, but had, like, a low-end bump, like, around, what, like, 100 or 110 hertz. Guys knew that and, like, took that to their advantage, like, on the old disco records and
Oh,
stuff, they would
cool.
get, like, that kick
Nice.
to thump a little more
Mhm.
just by hitting the tape a little harder. You
Nice.
get a little more tape saturation, you get a little bit more low end out of it,
Mhm.
right? And that's the thing about analog, I think that digital just
Yeah.
can't copy is low end. There's
Yeah. Yeah.
something
Some
about
the warmth of that low end. Yeah.
just has so much body with analog, and, like, even I've noticed just taking, like, a two-track master and summing it down on my console and doing, like, some parallel compression or, like, running another, like, stereo pre in parallel. I've just found that you get this, for lack of better words, it's like a three-dimensional characteristic that digital just can't
Yeah.
replicate. Like left and right sounds way wider to
Mhm.
me. You get more of what you call the phantom center because it's like, there's no speakers in front of you, but it just sounds like, oop, sorry, microphone. That it feels like the sound's coming from in front
Yeah.
of you, but it's like
Yeah.
binaural, you have
Mhm.
left and a right.
Yeah. Do
So,
do you prefer mixing with, some good monitors or some headphones?
oh, always monitors.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like headphones are like the microscope. I definitely check. I have,
Yeah.
kind of industry standard headphones. I check and it'll tell you stuff, right? Like I'll be like, ooh, maybe the kick is a little too bumping, or ooh, there's a little bit of harshness in the cymbals.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like the microscope. Um, if you have a decent set of speakers and they're set up correctly, they'll trump headphones. Oh, I hate that word. Sorry. They'll beat headphones any day of the week.
Yeah.
You know what I
For sure.
mean?
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of guys talk about this too. You don't need super, super expensive speakers
Yeah.
either. If you're used to a set of speakers, you've been working on them a long time, you'll know when a mix is right.
Yeah.
I've been on the same set of speakers for probably 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
the ones I brought here.
Oh, nice.
I have
Mhm.
3 sets of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I see them for
Oh.
$100, I buy them. I'm like, "Oh, they're mine."
Yep. Yeah. Gotta get an extra set
So,
just
yeah, you blow a driver or something, you know what I mean? You have to have an extra driver, extra tweeter or something.
Yeah.
They don't make the speakers I like anymore.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
bad
That's
company.
one thing, I never got a good set of, mixing speakers. I always just use headphones, some, like, AKGs, whatever that I can't remember
Or
what
the ones with the gold on them, I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, those
yeah.
were classic.
Mhm.
Great great headphones.
So let's talk about your music. Yeah, so how often do you release music? How many albums have you released? Like, I know you got this one that you're about to release. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about your music career.
Well, it started out of necessity. I had been played in a lot of bands and done a lot of stuff, and then kind of learned all the instruments myself and started to learn how to record. And I think it was probably like when I was 14, 15, I realized, well, hey, I could lay down a drum track and then I can lay a bass over it.
Yeah.
I can lay a guitar over it. And if I really want to sound like a fool, I could try to sing something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it started for me. I would say I got really serious about writing my own music maybe about 2008 when
Oh,
kind of
cool.
like with that
Mm,
ability to be able to record at home at
yeah.
a decent fidelity,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
and then, like, since it's in the computer, you can, like, mess with it, chop it up, and real
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that's really where I cut my teeth, learning how to edit was like doing my own stuff and
Mhm.
being a drummer, you hear every little mistake, right? Drummers will tell you
Yeah,
that. They're like you hear when people speed up, slow down, you hear everything.
yeah.
And that's kinda what sparked me on that road of, like, digital editing, right?
Mhm.
Being on a MacBook and, looking at waveforms and time aligning and,
Mhm.
not even really realizing I was learning stuff like phasing,
Yeah,
like phase aligning microphones, like, not even knowing what it was,
yeah,
that kinda thing.
very cool.
Um,
And so you started recording your own music, and, like, so when did you start putting it out to the world to hear?
Had to be about 2011, I think I wanna say I put out my first couple
Oh, cool. So you were, like,
projects.
working on it at home, not really telling people
Yeah,
too
I was
much.
really
Yeah.
secretive about it,
Yeah, yeah.
just kinda releasing it, which, I mean, it is what it is. You look back, I'm not really super proud of a lot of the stuff I've released.
Hey, nobody's super proud of their old work.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just that's the nature of, any kind of artistic endeavor, you know?
Well, it's super strange to me that, like, I took a long break from doing my own work. This is
Mm.
the first album that I've completed in probably 5 years.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
The first time in 5 years, I just put 3 weeks aside and was like, "I'm gonna make something. I'm gonna do it,"
Yeah. Nice.
had the fire. But, I mean, of my own personal even stuff that's unreleased, I mean, 20, 30 records worth.
Wow.
More than that, I mean,
Wow. That's a
I've probably written and recorded, my wife will back me up, probably over 1,000 songs.
wow, that's intense.
Yeah,
That's a good body of work.
but again,
You
I
learn
feel
a
like
lot
it's just
doing that many. Yeah.
yeah, it was a learning experience because I
Yeah.
feel like, the music I created, I'm not super proud of or, maybe some of it's not that good, but it taught me how to record other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
When you do have a good musician,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
for
you
sure. I mean, I used to record stuff. I never released any of my music that I ever recorded, so I know exactly, like, where you're coming from with that, like, also, you kind of you're your own harshest critic at the end of the day,
oh, yeah,
but,
big time.
like, did you, like, play a lot of live shows? Is that have you ever been a performer or
No,
more of just
this
a
is the first
studio recording?
you're the first, George.
Yeah.
You're my first.
Yeah,
No, for
nice.
real though, like I've never actually taken my own personal music out and tried to perform it as like a one-man band. I've
Yeah,
never ever done it.
never done it.
Yeah, I've always
Have
played
you played with other bands, though?
yeah, like I've
On bass or
backed people up on
drums?
bass, drums,
Yeah.
bass or drums. I've
Uh-huh.
never played guitar or anything in a band or
Yeah.
keys.
Mhm.
Excuse me. But no, this was the first time, and I think my inspiration was watching, like, old videos from, like, 1980, 1981 or 2 of, Thomas Dolby. "She blinded me with the"
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that video.
Nice.
Love Thomas Dolby, and, like, you watch some of the videos, and it's just him on stage. Like
Oh, really? Yeah.
yeah, with, like, a rack of, like, synth
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
like, the vocoders and it's just him
Yeah.
and a drum machine, like, doing it all.
Yeah.
And that's kinda what inspired me. I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I played everything on the record, but I think that's the fun part of performing it is, like, I can just pick and choose what I wanna do. It's like, "You know what? I just wanna sing this song today. I don't
Yeah.
wanna play the bass on it. I can just
Mhm.
do what I wanna do."
You ever
Yeah.
played drums while singing?
Yeah, believe it or not, that's actually, like, the easiest way for me to sing.
Really?
I get all messed up trying to play bass and yeah, I could play drums and sing
That's
for whatever
interesting.
reason, but, like, guitar or bass, synth, I have a hard time.
Yeah. Does that pose a challenge with the audio trying to record vocals while you're doing the drums?
That is, like, the absolute worst scenario.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the worst
That's so
scenario.
loud going into
Worst.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause, I used to work at a lounge. I was just kinda like a fill-in dude till they could get, like, a full-time staff.
Mhm.
It was called the Underground Lounge, but it was like the stage was like a shoe box, so you just had all these reflections bouncing off the wall. The drummer
Oh,
always
yeah.
wanted a monitor,
Oh, boy.
so it's like you have the kick drum
Wow.
blasting into all the microphones, and, like, if you're not careful,
Yeah.
it's feedback central.
Yeah. That
Then
sounds like
I would get all those metal drummers that wanted to sing and have a
oh,
microphone.
really?
So you've got this drum monitor blasting the kick drum into their vocal mic. Yeah.
They actually wanted their drum mix going through the monitor?
Not always. It was always like
Or
drummer
they
to
just
drum
wanted their vocals going through the monitor?
vocal and usually like kick drum,
Oh, wow.
maybe a
Interesting.
little snare.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, drummers
I
al
never even, like, thought of, like, drummers wanting to have a monitor because it's so loud already, like, you know?
I'm not picking on the metal drummers. I love my metal drummers because 'cause they're just incredibly skilled, most of the
Mhm.
ones that I encounter.
Yeah.
But they always want the kick drum, like, rocking their seat. I
Yeah.
wanna feel the kick.
Yeah.
That's like, "Alright, alright. Well, if you have a vocal mic and it feedbacks, I'm not right,
Yeah.
not responsible.
Yeah, yeah. And so you do live audio too, like
Yeah, I've
yeah,
done a lot of live
a
stuff,
lot of
starting probably in 2011 or 12.
okay, cool.
I had a whole live setup, like analog board, rack of stuff, and PL system.
Nice.
So I, would take that out and do some shows here and there.
Yeah.
Kinda got away from it. I moved to Arizona for a while and sold, like, my PA and all that kinda stuff and just
Mhm.
focused on studio and just got, like, hired out to do front of house. So I was running front of house for some metal bands in Arizona,
Oh, nice.
worked at a lot of venues all over, just freelance or
Yeah.
part-time
Yeah,
fill-in
cool.
guy.
What's, like, your favorite? Do you prefer the studio side or you prefer the live audio or
They're different.
yeah.
It's tough to say because I kinda like them both equally. It's
Mhm.
really hard to be like, I like one over the other. I spent a lot more time in the studio. I feel like that's what I know best.
Mhm.
I'm pretty comfortable. Most analog consoles, I look at it for a couple of minutes. I look at the patch bay. As long as I know where the inputs are in the room, I'm up and running in five
Yeah.
minutes. It doesn't matter what studio or where.
Yeah.
Live is just different. It takes a little bit more, and it's kinda like that, "Well, it is what it is." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like,
Yeah.
"Well, this thing's not working right now. I don't know what
Yeah.
to tell you."
I
You know?
yeah,
It is what it is.
I helped run live audio down in, Indianapolis after I graduated from Ball State before I got into video, and, like, I spent a summer down there just running live audio at this old church,
Oh, that
and, yeah, yeah, it was cool, but, it was yeah, a lot of kind of, like, janky equipment, like, you never know if it's gonna work or not,
right.
and, like, it was different, I'll say, like, it was still fun, but I there's something special about being in the studio. When you're in the
Oh, yeah.
studio, like, recording, it's just like you know you're making something cool, you know what I mean?
There's a
It's like
magic.
yeah,
There's
it's
a magic.
and live audio is cool too because you get that, like, adrenaline rush of, like, this is, like, it, like, you
Yep.
don't get a do-over.
Yeah, one
So
chance.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a
yeah.
one-shot deal to
So that
quote Zappa there.
yeah, they're both fun, but yeah, I always felt something special about being in the studio. It's just like, I don't know, I just like being there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like, yeah, if you were to really twist my arm, I probably do prefer studio work because, not that I wanna be in control of all the variables, but I feel like there's a lot more opportunity for control of variables, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like, with live, it's a one-shot deal, if something fails. I've worked at a lot of venues that have, like a Wi-Fi based mixer. So where, like, the mixer's in the wall behind the drummer on
Yeah. Oh,
stage,
wow.
right? And
And you got an
you're
iPad or
you're on an
something? Yeah.
iPad.
Yeah.
I admit, like, I hate that.
Yeah.
Like, I even if it's a digital console, I just like that tactile of you pull a fader,
Yeah.
it goes, not
Mhm.
this, "Can I get a little more vocal in my monitor?"
Yeah.
"Well, the Wi-Fi crashed. Give me about
Yeah.
15 minutes till I can physically climb back there and reboot the router," and that has happened
Yeah.
on more than one occasion. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a real scenario that's happened where I look at 'em like,
I remember
"What you do?"
somewhere between, like, 5 to 8 years ago is when I first started seeing the iPads coming out, and I was like, "That does not look fun."
And man buns, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I know, I'm sorry, I love you, George.
But, yeah, no, hey, I had my man bun back, in
Before it
20
was cool.
back before it was cool in, like,
It
2010. Uh,
Well, it's a necessity for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
but, yeah, my hair's too long, I have to tie it up,
Right,
that
right.
gets in the way, but, yeah, remember when I first started seeing those iPads, I was like, "Man, I would never wanna mix like that, it just
I
doesn't
hate
look
it.
fun."
No,
I
it's
want a
not.
physical board,
It's
like
not fun.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it can be. Like, look, if the band is ripping, it's fun no matter what.
Yeah,
You know
for
what I
sure.
mean? If it's
Mhm.
a good show, it's a good freaking show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, like, I just find that some technology, it's supposed to make your life
It gets
easier,
in the way.
but it's like, I'm gonna quote, I always mess his last name up, Nick Fair. Ooh, sorry, bud. The dude that used to be in Groovatron, guitar player.
Okay, yeah, mhm.
I just remember him saying to me one time when I had a digital console just fail on me miserably one time.
Really?
Just an embarrassing moment where it's just like the thing's just not working,
Yeah.
right? And he's just like, "Well, that's why I like analog. You just turn a knob and it
Yeah.
goes." And I just
Yes.
looked at him like,
Dude, in the video world,
"Well,
they've been going everybody's going so far into, like, the apps and stuff, like, lights have an app now, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm not gonna use that. I don't have time to, like, when I'm on set, connect to 1,000 different
I
things with my phone."
know.
Like, I just want
I
some
hate it."
physical buttons, some physical knobs that I can turn and let it, like, work, you know what I mean? Like, even I love this switcher that I have over there because I have physical buttons on it,
Oh,
and,
yeah,
like,
babe.
I've seen some newer ones coming out where they're making it all digital and, like, touch screen. I'm like,
Nope.
"No, I need
N
the physical
no.
tactile buttons. I need to 'cause for me, it's like, I wanna be able to mess with it without looking, you know?
Right,
I wanna be able
right.
to, like, see something else while, like, hitting the buttons, you know? Like, it's just something about, like, technology is, like, they're mm, they're going too far with, like, the digital everything, like, so there's a reason, like, physical buttons and knobs, like, existed and why some people prefer it. Even on
Oh, yeah.
cars and trucks, the
I
newer
hate it.
my truck luckily still has all knobs for, like, everything, like, uh,
For your
four
volume,
four
right?
volume, four-wheel drive, any of that stuff, it's all knobs, but the new ones, they put it all into the touch
Oh.
screen like a Tesla. Did you know on a Tesla, you have to, shift using, like, the screen? Like or there's, like, a little thing up here, but it's still like, sort of touch screen thing, and I just saw that recently, and I was like, "Oh, dude, I would never want one of those." Like, I like physical knobs and buttons on everything.
I just yeah, I'm gonna use this quote wrong, I'm gonna change it, but I just think of Monty Python where he's like, look at the violence inherent in the system." It's like, look at the problems inherent in the
Yeah.
system. When you run everything through one like in audio, if you run everything through one DSP circuit, when that circuit fails, you're dead in the water, dude.
Yeah.
And that's what annoys me, is like, okay, let's put all this reliance on this one thing to do everything. And when it fails, you
Yeah.
can't shift your car.
Yeah.
You're stuck in drive.
Yeah, right.
Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Now in the audio world, okay, if I get stuck in record, whatever, no big deal. I'll make do, but I don't want my car stuck in drive.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? And that goes back to something I was gonna say a minute ago. I think is really fascinating to me. Is like, I'm an analog guy personally. Obviously I record digitally. I use plugins. I do a lot of digital stuff, but most of what I do is physical mediums. The microphone passing through the console on the front end, right? I find it so fascinating that you have a lot of plugin manufacturers like, well, Solid State Logic is traditionally a large format console manufacturer. They've gotten into plugins, and it's just hilarious to me that they have these plugins that imitate actual hardware that they've created. But now, here's where it gets really interesting. Not only is it like they have the digital representation of the computer, dudes are getting like these little like control surfaces that plug in USB so they can have that tactile
It's
feel.
ridiculous.
I'm like,
Why don't you make it digital and then come
why
back to the
why wouldn't you just buy the
Yeah,
hardware?
yeah.
And I know people are gonna fight me on
That's
that,
wild.
but it's like,
They're like, "Let's make it digital." Oh, wait, we need the hardware, so let's make a
yeah,
hardware that works with the digital.
let me tweak digital parameters on a physical thing,
Yeah.
right? And I just
Like,
find that
yep.
so
Dude, jumping
silly.
through hoops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I'd rather
Go back to
have
the old. Yeah.
I'd just rather have the real deal on the
Yeah.
front end. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
set and forget, like
Mm,
Ron Popeil, right? It's like
yeah.
you said it, it does its thing, it's done. And one of my favorite everybody's favorite mix engineer, Chris Lord Alge, that's what he does, dude. He's got a big, 64 channel SSL console, and every channel has a hard patch on it. He knows
Mhm.
exactly what it does. Well, here's my snare channel, pulls a snare from the computer in it, does the thing, he's done.
Yeah.
It's no
Mhm.
fussing,
Yeah.
as I quote Warren Hewitt there, fussing about.
Yeah.
I don't want to fuss about. I don't want
Yeah.
to mess around with digital stuff. Oh, why isn't my digital control surface not working?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you just turn a knob, it just goes.
Maybe we're just old.
You getting there,
Yeah.
right? I've crossed into the weird old dude in
Yeah.
your basement with a studio bass,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm the weird guy with a TV studio in my
TV
living room.
studio, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Like,
yeah, man, this is, a new age we're living in, but I still think that's it's good to keep remember where the roots came from and, like, keep keep using some of that old technology because like it's different, but in some ways still better.
Yeah.
Some ways the new tech like makes your life easier, but sometimes like the old tech, if it's not broken, don't fix it. It's kind of
Right.
my philosophy.
Right. Like, how many plugins, of a keyboard can we make? It's like, just buy the keyboard.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah, right.
I just don't get it. Like, we're
Yeah.
logging down the computer. Like, I have a good example. I had a Fender amplifier that had DSP circuit in it,
Mhm.
and it's a tubed amp, right? It's
Mhm.
got a tube input and a tube or a tube output uh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's tube.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. But, like, it ran through a DSP circuit,
Right.
right? The DSP circuit pooped.
Oh,
Like, they quit making them however long ago. It's just a circuit board. You can't
yeah.
find them anywhere. So I had that, like, well, do I just, like, not have an amp or what? I
Yeah.
I told the guy, I'm just like, "Well, it's tube. Just get around the DSP circuit, wire it like an old
Yeah.
Fender amp." And that's what he did. He just wired it. It's just an input, a volume, and a tone, and
Nice.
that's it. And
Nice.
it's one of my favorite amps.
Really? Nice.
I don't need
Yeah.
a DSP. It
Yeah.
just made my life. It's like I moved back from Arizona. It sat in like a truck for a few months.
Mhm.
First time I fired it up, you just smell it like burning. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I
Uh-oh.
love a tube amp. You were looking at my Valve
Yeah,
over
your Valve
there,
King.
and I there's something special about tubes. That's another thing where people will argue back and forth, like solid state can sound just as good as tubes.
It can.
There's no difference.
Yeah, I mean, it
I don't know.
can.
I'm sure. Yeah, they can. You can emulate the sound pretty well, but I've always found, like, with amps I mean, I haven't really looked into any new tech on amps, so I really wouldn't know anymore, but back, 10, 15 years ago, I remember hearing this amp and just being like, "Man, I love that tube sound." There's something special about that tube sound to me, it's just like a warmth. Like, I keep going back to that word warmth,
Well, it
anything you
is.
plug,
I mean, it is. It's just a different sound that, it's more mid-rangey, and mid-range, lower mid-range just gets associated with that warmth, right? Of like
yeah,
tape, saturation. It just sounds warm, right?
yeah,
No, but like I'm kind of the ilk of you where it's like I don't care what the name brand is on it as long as it sounds good for the most part. I mean, there's
mm,
certain ones I'll kind of stay away from, but like, dude, people hate on PV for whatever reason.
yeah.
I'm like, why?
I like
Why?
PVMs.
Why? Like, dude, that Valve King is a sleeper,
Mhm.
right? Like, if
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
right?
Derek Caruso likes PV, and he plays on, oh, man, there's a solid state PV that he plays on that sounds so good that
Was it the Bandit?
maybe, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I saw. I
I can't
saw
remember now, but,
a while ago.
he plays on, like, he had an older, solid state that I was like, "Damn, that sounds really good." I almost wanna get it, but I play so like, I don't play that often. I'm like, "I
You
have it
should.
already."
You're a good player.
I know, I
You're a
should
good
play more,
player.
yeah.
Look through.
I just work so much, and I don't know, I get into this mode where I'm just like, "No, I can't take time off to have fun, I gotta work."
You go hammer on and hammer off central over
Yeah,
here. So that's
that's all I do.
no, but you're good at it though.
Thank
You
you,
should.
thank you.
Well, like,
But
kind of circling back around though, like with PV and some of these other amps, it's like, one of my favorite recording dudes, taught me a lot about recording metal because I struggled with metal guitar tones for a while.
yeah,
You know,
I still struggle with getting the metal tone, especially out of a Fender, but
well, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's tough to
I have a Dean, with some Dave Mustaine signature pickups.
nice.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, it's like the Phantom Z, like,
Done.
big, gigantic body. That thing is massive, but I can't play as well on it because the strings are a little bit further apart. Like, the neck is
Cool.
wider than a Fender, and I just love the feel of a Fender neck,
Me
so,
too.
yeah,
I really do.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big Fender dude myself.
I like, miss the strings because 'cause they're too far apart on the
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, like Gibsons and other brands are just different. That's
Yeah,
all. Not good or bad.
yeah.
Just different.
Something
Right?
about a Strat, I just love it, or like a Telecaster,
Yeah.
I love those.
So yeah, I love me a good Strat too.
Yeah.
That's why when I saw yours, I was like, "Ooh, baby,
Yes.
I have
Yeah,
this bad boy."
yeah.
You know,
But hey, let's get into your album that you're releasing.
right?
How
I
did
guess
you how did you go about recording it and like the different parts? Like where'd you come up with it?
So that's what's really interesting. Most of the time when I record my own stuff, I have an idea going in, or like I want to kind of do this, or I'm trying to sound a certain way, right?
Mhm.
I abandoned that this time
Oh, yeah.
completely. I was like, why am I trying to imitate something else I've heard, or, not copy, because I don't do that. I don't rip people's stuff off or
Mhm.
anything like that, but like
You can sorta emulate
emulate,
sounds, yeah.
right? Emulate your peers or whatever, the
Mhm.
people you look up to. I didn't do that this time. I set aside an entire week to track, and I pretty much had no ideas when I went in. That's what's crazy is I had maybe 2 or 3 sessions started in Pro Tools where it was like, a metronome drum beat, which is where I always start, just like just something to jam to,
Mhm.
and maybe like a keyboard track, like an idea, right?
Yeah.
That was all I had. Maybe 3 tracks started. I started on a Friday and I tracked till the next Friday, and I had 17 songs.
So you're just, like, locked yourself in the studio and
Yeah.
just, "What am I gonna just started playing around."
Started playing, and it's
Yeah.
like, I started with drums, which
Mhm.
I typically do,
Mhm.
but I usually have an idea of what I wanna do, right?
Yeah.
I didn't this time. I just started just, like, jamming a beat, and I'd be like, "Ooh, that's a cool beat."
Yeah.
I'd set up a metronome, and then I would just play a drum beat, kinda like a structured pattern,
Mhm.
that could be a song,
Mhm.
And I just started with drums, played drums to a metronome till I was happy. Had I didn't go just like, 17 drum tracks. It was start one, kind of finished it, started another, finished it, kind of started, just did 'em one by one. And just started with drums, and then it's like, well, ooh, I hear a fun little keyboard thing in my head, let's
Yeah.
get on the keys. And that goes back to, you mentioned about how I have my studio set up. I do what you call the Nashville style setup where everything's plugged in, everything's mic'd, everything's on. There's no messing around, man.
So
It's
you
like
can
the
just, like,
second
when that idea comes,
second
you
you get an
yeah.
idea, well, which amp are we plugging into? There's no messing around, right? It's
Nice.
on, it's
Yeah.
ready to roll. So I just had that mentality of like, well, here's a cool little synth line
Mhm.
over the drums. Ooh, now I hear a little bass thing.
Yeah.
Ooh. And then, my wife hates that I do this, but it does serve a purpose. I usually wander around the house and like mumble stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I do
You
the
know,
same thing.
I just like these phrases, stuff that rhymes, weird things. I was playing around with this idea of the neoprene gangster, right? And keeping it sealed up tight, like
Mhm.
neoprene seals, it's airtight.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
just kind
yeah.
of like 90s rap where they're like, you know, I keep it tight,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of stuff. So the whole concept of the record was an accident. It was
Yeah.
just I was playing around with this idea of the neoprene gangster and thinking about like thug gangster stuff I used to do in my youth. But like, as an old man, I'm like a little bit delusional. Those memories are exaggerated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in my older mind,
Yeah.
it's way more gangster, way gnarlier than it really was in real life.
Yeah.
So it's like the whole album is, memories of false gangsterness and how gangster you used to be or how thug you thought you were.
Uh-huh.
And it's that realization of like, whoa, I'm not that gangster anymore. I'm
Yeah.
like some old dude in my basement, but you still like really want to like feel
Yeah.
young again.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of like the concept of the record.
That's cool, man.
And I kind of ran with that idea of the neoprene gangster,
Yeah.
and the lyrics just wrote themselves.
I feel like this has to be a super unconventional way of, like, making music.
That's how they
Like,
used to back in the
that's
90s,
really
man.
cool. Like, the fact that you started with drums is wild to me. Like,
Get them right.
you just you're like, "I like this beat, so I'm gonna make this beat.
Yep.
I like this beat, I'm gonna make this beat." And
Yeah.
then you're like, "What instrument goes with that beat?"
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an
It's like,
interesting way. I feel like a lot of music is, like, written on the instrument, and then they add the drums later. So it's like it seems so crazy to me to, like, do the drums first. It's really cool.
well, I think that's why the record has kind of a dance record kind of a feel.
Oh,
The
okay.
drums were
Yeah.
kinda set in stone, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I didn't edit them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
here's what I played.
that's
I
interesting.
think, like, maybe I hit a rim or 2,
Mhm.
here and there on a drum fill and sampled a tom.
Yeah.
Ooh, kill me. You know what I mean? But, like,
Mhm.
I didn't I didn't time align all the drums to the grid.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. Like, most people will use Beat Detective and every set is the air fill.
Okay.
Every hit's perfect. Nah. No,
Interesting.
I like the organic feel. I like
Mhm.
the push and pull. Sometimes I hit the snare a little ahead of the beat.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm a little dragging on a drum fill, maybe coming on the one a little late.
Mhm.
Hey, man, it's all part of the feel. Back in the day with tape, do you think they over edited? Nah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like, gotta get it right.
Uh-huh.
And I always look at like dudes like Stuart Copeland, who's, arguably one of my favorite drummers, you know.
Mhm.
Um, when they were doing all the Police stuff, they started with drums.
Oh,
It
really?
was like, yeah,
Yeah.
even if they were in the room and they were recording the bass and they were recording the guitar and they're all in the room jamming, the
Mhm.
whole point of those recording sessions were to just get the drum track. And the other two dudes made, Sting would come and make his pretty little arrangement around Stewart's
Wow.
drum track.
That's
And that's
interesting.
why a lot of people are kind of like, well, that's why the Police is what it is. If it had
Yeah.
been another drummer, it wouldn't be what it is
Yeah.
because of Stewart's vibe. And, the
That's
drums were set in
cool.
stone.
Yeah.
They weren't going to edit them.
Yeah.
They weren't going to mess with them. It was just, that's what it was.
Yeah.
You know?
That's super cool.
So he hits rims. Like, you hear him speed up, slow down a little bit. I know he played to a metronome a lot, but I do hear it in some songs.
Did you play
For
to a
sure.
metronome on your
Oh, the whole record
the whole
is a
record? Yeah,
metronome.
yeah.
But I didn't over edit. I didn't time align
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm.
The drums, they have a feel because of that.
Yeah.
It's a vibe.
Were
Right?
these like drum things that you had like ideas you've had for a long time, or you just like
Not
started
even.
feeling it out just
No, because every day's different. I'll go downstairs in my basement some days and it's like, I play a reggae beat, like a straight reggae beat, or some days it's like I'm like double kicking.
Mhm.
It's just kind of what I felt in those moments.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, hey, this is a cool beat.
Yeah.
Let's track it, see what happens. And I whittled 17 songs down to 14.
Okay.
It was just too long.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even so, the record still, I mean, might be kind of long by most
Yeah.
people's standards.
How long is it?
About 50 minutes on
Okay.
the dot. I
That
want to
seems
say
kinda
about 50 or 51.
doesn't seem too long to me.
Most records these days are
45?
about like a half hour.
Half hour? Oh, really? Yeah,
Most
short.
records I see,
Interesting.
you know,
I don't yeah,
18
I'm
minutes.
so I feel like I'm just so disconnected from the audio world anymore that I don't know, like, what's standard and stuff for
Like a 2 to 3
albums
minute
and
pop song,
yeah. Yeah,
even
yeah.
even like when it comes to like metal and stuff, they've kind of gotten cutting down to, 2 to
2 to 3 minutes.
4 minutes at
Yeah.
most on like a
Not like
metal track.
not like Iron Maiden where it's like a 20-minute song.
Not anymore, not anymore. And I don't know if it's I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I don't know if it's just the nature of streaming,
Yeah.
just everything
It
at your
it
fingertips all the
probably has to
time,
do with
being able
social
to just,
media.
skip, skip,
Yeah.
skip, right?
I was honestly just talking about this, with Max, who was on my
Max.
other podcast 2
Yeah,
2
good one.
podcasts ago. Um,
Good podcast, by the way.
like, social media has changed the way we shoot and edit video to where, like, it's crappier quality, it's done really fast, slapped together, all that because that's just, like, the nature of it. You gotta get it out as fast as possible.
That's what people
Peop
expect.
Yeah, yeah, people don't care about the quality anymore, and I is that have you seen that in music at all?
Somewhat.
Uh,
I think there's a push and a pull, right?
yeah,
I think a lot of artists are cognizant that you need content all the time. Quick, quick, quick.
yeah,
Sometimes the quality isn't necessarily as important because, oh, it's just going to be an Instagram story. It's just going to
mhm,
be something on TikTok. But now the record,
yeah,
that's a different story. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier about that, like that magic.
mhm,
Do you know what I mean? Of like, that sense of purpose when you're in the studio, you got the big analog console. It must be serious, right?
mhm,
You know, um, I think it's a push and a pull.
yeah,
I really do. I think records still get taken very, very seriously, but the nature of like a single or, just quick, what would you call it? Like short form content?
short
Is that
form,
the
yeah,
frame
yeah,
or
the phrase, yeah,
the term for it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So on this particular album, did you have any of that in mind, like, for the output? Like,
No.
this was just like, "I wanna go by feel, whatever feels right."
Yeah, it just happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this record different than anything I've ever done. I've never done a record where I was proud enough to put it out there and just be like, "Hey, this is me."
Mhm.
This is the first time I've really made something that I can just be like proud of and be like, you know, if it weren't me, I would still listen to it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the toughest thing being a musician.
Mhm.
I think it was Neil Young that said, "I make the music I want to hear."
Oh, yeah, cool. Mhm.
And that's kind of what it is. I love old school funk. I love Primus. I love Devo. I love
Mhm.
Zappa. I love, old school hip hop like the
Yeah.
J5.
I
Um,
can hear all those influences in
Thank
this
you.
album for sure. Well,
I feel like
let's
it came through.
yeah,
You
it
know?
did. Let's let the audience listen to it. Let's go do this little recording here. Actually, we already recorded it earlier, but
Don't tell anybody.
all right, let's cut to it.
3, 2, 1. Got that gangsta lean. What's up, y'all? Thanks for having me, George. Appreciate you. Professor Space Boogie here. Gonna be rocking the set live June 21st, Finnegan's Pub, Dyer, if you're interested. Oh, that's my cue. I got that gangsta lean. I keep it real pretty. Still love tight. I got that gangsta lean. I keep it real pretty. Still love tight. This song's about Giacomo Turra. Poor guy. He got caught plagiarizing other people. I wrote it before he plagiarized everybody, so sorry, buddy. Yeah, baby. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Don't drink and drive. Be kind to everybody.
And we're back. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was awesome. I really enjoyed filming it.
Thanks, George.
Where can we find the full album? Where can people at home hear it?
It's coming out. The full record will be out on May 9th. It'll be everywhere. I did it through DistroKid, so Spotify, Apple Music. There'll be a full-length video on YouTube.
What do they search? Just your name, John Mick, or
Professor Space Boogie's my alter ego or alias.
nice
Is
Professor
Space Boogie.
Professor
But
Space Boogie?
for short, either PS Boogie or I just call myself the Boogie Doctor.
Yeah. Do you have like special accounts for like social media accounts for that?
Yes.
Professor.
So there is a Professor Space Boogie account, Facebook, Instagram. But I mostly post everything through my studio page too. So I would say the studio page is probably the best place to check
Swamp
it out.
Sound Studios.
Swamp Sound Studios. So on
Cool.
Instagram, Facebook.
Cool, man. Well,
Where-
I'll have to check it out May 9th. Everybody,
9th.
everybody at home, go check it out. But before we end the podcast, I just want to know, like, what are you currently working on?
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Lot of stuff. So currently looking to try and book some bands right now. Freelance out of a couple of different studios in Chicago. I have 2 return customers we're talking about making a record.
Nice.
I just started working on Shane's record.
Mhm.
Super fun project. I have a returning client. It's just become like a brother to me. 95 Goldie, shout out. Check out 95 Goldie. We've just been cranking, dude. When
Yeah.
it comes to he does everything like jazz, hip hop kind of stuff. We're gonna be getting in the studio here in a couple weeks, maybe a month or so. I get the track on a big old analog console, you know.
Nice.
So working on that. Just some things that have come out. Check out Lizzie No's live record. I tracked that live at the Hideout. It's called Commie Country.
I filmed it.
Yeah, that's right. We did that one together.
Yes.
It's out everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We collabed on that one.
Yeah.
Goldie's got some stuff out. Check that out. Gearhart's record, full length, should be coming out soon. They've got 2 singles out right now. Another band, check out Out of Options. We did a full length live record, came out in October. Man, just so much to even name.
Yeah.
Too many projects to even name.
Sounds like you're a busy man.
Cranking, but in the best way. It's the busy I want to be.
This
you
is
know?
Chewy.
Hey, Chewy.
He likes your music too. He was sleeping earlier underneath the couch there while you were playing. But yeah, and you're full-time audio now, right?
Yeah, I
Is
used
that
to be a
we can announce here?
yeah, definitely. I used to be a case manager, and a week ago today, I quit my job.
Congratulations.
I accepted a job at Hard Rock.
Nice.
It allows me the flexibility to be able to be available during the weeks and to be able to track, to go to Chicago, to book my studio out, to mix, to master, to do it all.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
awesome.
to
I'm
just-
so happy for you, like jumping off, and like now you don't have to waste your time with that other job. Now you're doing what you love, and yeah, that's a
job. I
yeah,
love it.
yep,
I love it.
yeah, cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, and if you guys didn't hear, May 9th, he's got an album coming out, so go check it out.
It'll probably be out by the time this is released, but I
Yeah.
do have a single coming out. What'll be tomorrow on the day that we're filming this, May 2nd.
Cool.
Friday.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get this out by tomorrow, but we'll try because I got another one I got to release in between.
No.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yeah, Swamp Sound Studios, go check them out all over the place. And Doctor, was it
Professor Space Boogie.
Professor Space
But,
Boogie? Check that out
But
too.
yeah, I just call myself Dr. Boogie.
Yeah, okay, Dr. Boogie, cool. Well, John Mick, thanks for coming on, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Take it easy, guys.
Peace out.